Welcome everyone. Welcome to SCAP Writers on Zoom. This is our third time doing this with Donna and I hosting, and it's been really wonderful. We've had poets from Melbourne, the fabulous Kevin Higgins from Ireland. Tonight we're really lucky. We've got the poet Anne Drysdale, so she's our special guest. But boy, have we got some guests round about her. So I'm delighted to be here, and this is the first time that we've had an audience in for the film. So we're going to continue throughout next year with SCAP Writers on Zoom, and then we'll be moving to SCAP Writers in the room. So that should be interesting as well. So I'm going to hand you over. What do you think, Donna?
I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic night. I'm looking forward to it. I have the little blanket over the knees, just getting ready for all these fantastic poets that are here tonight. And welcome everybody. I hope you enjoy tonight with all these poets that we've got for you.
So, yep, going to be a fabulous one. So our first poet is a man that I've just loved reading his poetry collection, and everything I've been on. I was on events at Brighton, and was knocked out by his poetry. So I've seen him at a few different things online, and we're hoping to get him up when we eventually have the live events. So Andy Breckenridge, he's an English teacher, lives in Brighton, but he's originally from Oban. And he writes mainly about self-imposed exile, place, relationships, and memory. Poems often include fish and water. I just loved reading that, Andy. I just thought that just the quirkiness of that was just a wee bit of a perfect moment when I read that, when you sent me it. His pamphlet, The Liquid Air, which I've read many times, was published by Dreich in July 2021. And the Chris Riddell illustrated version came out last summer. He's appeared in several print and online journals and is currently billeting, you're very bad, a full collection with the working title, The Fish Inside. Please welcome Andy Breckenridge.
Thanks very much, Linda, for that introduction, and thanks, Linda and Donna, for putting on this evening. I'm really looking forward to hearing all these other poets that are going to come on tonight. It's great, I think, that we've got an event like this. I'd like to do a wee screen share, if that's okay. Just set that up now. Can everybody see that? Cracking, thanks. I'd like to kick off with a poem longlisted for the Hastings Poetry Prize this year, which ended up, I suppose, as a poem offering comfort when we get faced with life's great uncontrollables, and it's called You, Faustus. Studies have shown that no individuals can broker deals with fate. Holding your breath for as long as it takes to drive through a tunnel will not reduce the numbers of war dead, stop the climate crisis, or those multiplying cells. Affirmations may provide temporary escape routes on coastal roads where the descent is steep. But each square on the calendar is a room with a number on the door. In one, the traffic is gridlocked under the viaduct, and heat haze shudders in the torn midsummer light. In another, your friends will look up from their Peshwari naan and madras and glistening columns of lager. In another, the blue second of a kingfisher ticks by just above the surface of the canal. In another, you drink tea when a slug trail slung between mint leaves caught the sun like a silver watch chain. And the early hawthorn will blink like coral. And in another, you worried that the plastic hooks and netting wouldn't grasp the luggage on the roof of your Ford Fiesta, but they did. Thank you. Thank you. This second poem is going to appear in the next issue of Poets Republic, and it was during all that time when all this royal stuff was on the telly a few weeks ago, and it looks at the vocabulary that comes about in the mass media when an event like that takes place, and this vocabulary visits us, and usually is delivered in cut glass accents. And this poem just looks at what do these words do when they're not being used. This is Consort, an ode. Consort, you are a 24-carat word shaped carefully by the mouths of royal commentators, each syllable a golden smoke ring. When not required, you repair to the Hôtel des Antiquités and take the air, light and sun in the landscaped alpine gardens. In the cocktail lounge, you rub epaulettes with heir apparent, covet dowager's gold and precious stones, hook up with equerry, chamberlain, manservant, sedan chair, and the twins, regnant and regent, and stagger under your towering powdered wigs. Use your handkerchief to mask sneezes. Laugh love to ashes, down dry sack like water, neck, capons, until your ink aches with gout and pox. Weeks ago, you brushed elbows with mourners, soundtracked the trundle of gilded carriages through the riptide of flowers. Hungover now, you consort with book lice who amble along the spine of Carolina Brunswick's leather-bound biography to feed on bookbinder's paste in the historic library. At the entrance, caryatids strain to prop up this venerable establishment. Thank you. Thanks very much. The next poem is based on a real event in 1980 when I saw Donald Sutherland do what he does in the poem, and it's for everybody who's been brought up in a small town and has felt the magnetic pull of the big city and the bright lights. This is called Signal Box Oban. This was in Southlight magazine. I think it was issue 31. Signal Box Oban. No need now for the rows of levers on the first floor of mostly windows, tugging signs up and down. Donald Sutherland skulked past it in the eye of the needle as a German spy, dumped a pile of newspapers revealing his existence over the wall and into the sea from the railway pier in a scene that was cut. The super sprinter train hints at speeds it can't muster or fully master the climbs on the way to Glasgow. Stops for a styrofoam cuppa and a regal while the drivers change at Creanlarich. Not much longer until Queen Street Station, Sammy Dow's and Pizza Crolla, stay pressed trousers and Harringtons, football and records, and the underground in the city where the undercover signals came from in the first place. Thank you. Other Glaswegian pizza suppliers are also available. I'd like to finish with a poem that appeared in Liquid Air. It's Linda very kindly mentioned it in the introduction. It's illustrated by Chris Riddell and it's published by the wonderful Dreich. And I'd like to finish with a poem dedicated to my daughter. It's about when she was born. This is The Night You Were Born for NFB. That night, she's on all fours in the birthing pool with small red clouds like angry seahorses, and you, half out, head first, and still submerged. That night she yells, "Get it out, it's drowning, drowning." The midwife smiles. The baby has never known air, so hasn't learned to drown. The day before in the shopping centre, we buy a giant wardrobe, big enough for a family of otters. The night before, I dreamed of tadpoles in the soup of a sink among moss and long, thick grass. 13 ticks stuck fast, gorge on me. One cuts gills and punches out limbs and hauls itself over the edge towards the water. The next day, I hold you in a white blanket and look out the window to the sea where you broke the surface, came ashore. Thanks everyone for listening. Cheers.
That was really wonderful. I read that poem out actually to my daughter because we had the birthing pool scenario as well. She asked me and her partner to go in, and exactly, that was something like that. It was just, I need to get out of this pool. The baby's going to drown. And she did crawl out of the thing actually at the last minute, but the nurse was saying, don't worry. But so I read it out to Kirsten, yeah.
Wow.
So thanks, they were lovely poems, really great. It's really nice to have Andy on there from Brighton and see these references to the Crolla and the pubs in Glasgow as well. I love that. When you're up next time, we'll meet up for a pint, Andy. Let's do it. So our next guest on tonight is a young man I've met recently, and I'm just wowed actually by his poems. His name is Tony Garner. He is a writer and an ESOL teacher living in Glasgow. He's been published in various journals, including Green Ink, Read This, and New Writing Scotland. He designs poetry teaching resources for young people, and he works with refugees. Please welcome Tony Garner.
Thanks, Linda, for that really kind introduction. And thanks everyone for coming. It's great to see so many people here, and such a pleasure to be with other poets. And I've had a chance to get to know some of your work as well before this as well. Actually, Andy, I found a couple of poems of yours that I loved as well, one of which you just read out. And that theme that you're exploring of dislocation, of coming from Oban and moving to the big city, is one that I like to explore as well. As Linda mentioned, I'm an ESOL teacher. I teach English as a second language to refugees and asylum seekers in Glasgow. And I think the way of seeing that you have as a refugee coming to a new city, where you're caught between these two competing ways of being. One of them is in the present, looking at your immediate surroundings and moving forward, and the other one is, you know, the where you came from before, who you were before, the language you spoke before. That sort of tension is one that I found really I could relate to, and I think a lot of us can, and it's quite a useful one to have when you're writing poetry. So I'm just going to read 4 poems in a row and briefly read the title between them. Okay, the first one is called Cyclists and Sinners. Sky sports spitting needles. I'm stopped at a red when High Priestess emerges in her chariot bump down the step from Betfred. Her young attendant follows, painted and adorned for ceremonial duties. High Priestess announces, I'm not going out in this, going to get a taxi. Attendant backs in tempo, leaves Priestess unattended, her Inca cheekbones sunken, hair grey greasy longing. The bluesman Robert Johnson sang, at the crossroads, baby, I get down on my knees. Priestess prefers Blondie, inhabits Debbie Harry. Her fags and sacrifices give her voice the timbre to sing. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, one way or another. Sad old sinner, laughing priestess clocks me as amber turns to green. The next poem is called A Jarring. Only once have I held one. I was 12, and after school, I went back to the house of my new friend Martin, cached in the woods of an old private estate, riddled with birdsong. While his mum made our tea, we played in autumn leaves, the golden retriever, the willow cricket bat, the seamed blood-red ball. Whack. It's coming back. The long barrel hard to keep steady, the trigger stiff. There was a crack. The recoil jars painfully in my soft hands. I don't think I had a clue what I was aiming at. Do I now? The next one's called Auto Definitions. By day be teacher of listen, speak, read, write. By night be scribe, scribbler, scrivener, screever, scratcher, scraper. From scroll to screen, scrimp and save, cowl and cassock, unholy devotions, local notions. Dei secoli profondi mi consente per favore del nunquam vadis ultra graffiti di Casanova sulle mura di prigione. Le mura or la mure? Plurality of the signified. Answerable if I found that precious relic, my mother's dictionary, definition she labored over, for editori Garzanti in Byzantine Milan, ante the scribe's conception. Apologies to any actual Latin speakers. The last poem I'm going to read is called Limbo, and it's actually, the words came from the mouth of an asylum seeker I taught, so not really mine. For 17 months, I have been waiting. I hear nothing, nothing. It's driving me crazy. I can't do anything. Yes, I have a lawyer. Change the lawyer. It's no, the lawyer is the problem. It's the Home Office. Did my fingerprint get taken? Somewhere else, maybe. I fear those sun-starved Swedish years may yet come back to haunt me. Be patient. Oh, aye, patient. But until when? I'm almost an old man already, dying for want of all the things I love and need. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I'm working with some of the people you know just now, and it's quite a humbling experience to listen to the stories. You talk about disruption and the equilibrium of a life, and then you hear these stories from Iran and Syria, etc. It's breathtaking, actually. So I love that. I love the cyclists. I also love that girl just down there. I can just see her. I think I know who she is, the one that wants to be Blondie in Victoria Road. I've got an idea who that might be, Tony. Anyway, we can confer at one point. So our next guest is Peter Burnett. Lovely guy. I think the first time I met was through in Edinburgh, where I think he was either reading it or hosting an event. And with a couple of drinks and we chat, and I've seen him at a few things since. And I thought it might be quite nice because Scots engaged for set up a wee bit of publishing coming up in the future. And obviously I work with Seahorse Publications, quite a new venture in terms of publishing. Peter's been at it much longer with he's the director of Leamington Books. And he specialises in working with new writers, which is very good for many of our audiences out there today. He's published 8 first-time authors in 2021, and he's the author of 9 books and has published over 40 titles under Leamington. So he's a man. We're going to have a bit of a conversation now about what Leamington looks for in a new writer for a new publication. So welcome, please, Peter Burnett.
Hi, thanks, Linda. Thanks, Linda. That was the Heretics we met at here in Edinburgh, which a few of you might already know. I think we were struck by illness. I don't know if it was the dreaded COVID or not, but I couldn't make it. Anyway, thank you for the invitation. That's good. I've not been publishing too long, weirdly. It's just actually 2020 the company began, as it now is. As you said, I'd been a writer before, which was okay. It's kind of much harder in many ways.
You're not selling it. You're not selling it. It was okay.
It's much harder being a writer, to be honest, because you just have to wait so long for your book to come out. If you're a publisher, you're like constantly, their book's coming out all the time, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And writing, you're just really there by yourself. But I had published a couple of books, one in 2009 and 10, 11, 12. I did a lot of self-publishing, obviously, in the 90s, pamphlets. When I first started publishing, I had a quite good job in an office. And I realized then that all I really needed to do to publishing was to have a long arm stapler and access to a photocopier. I've still got the long arm stapler, actually, as a symbol of my kind of commitment to publishing. And in that office, which was the office of an insurance firm, they'll never know, but I just printed so many booklets by myself, other people, just anything. I was in there after hours photocopying away. So that was how the publishing started. But the company is really only, 2020.
Good. So what do you look for? Do you get a whole lot of a raft of stuff in? Was there anything in particular? Just see if something takes your fancy when you're reading through it. Is that how it, do you put out themes or anything like that?
Would you like to know about poetry in particular? Because poetry is very, very different from...
Yeah, poetry maybe in fiction and then other non-fiction, whatever.
Poetry, for me, is just probably the best part of the publishing and the real luxury, because it's not commercial, really. I mean, you try. I think all publishers try. If you print, books, but it's never going to be commercial. So that just means it can just be what I want, really. I don't really need to think about anything else. And so I've done pretty much 2 poetry books a year, although I think I only did just one this year, actually. So what I'd be looking for is, I've been going to poetry events forever, 25 years at least, of going to wee back rooms in pubs or big events like Rally and Broad and bigger things, and it just becomes like a habit. And I've seen so many people reading over the years, and it's a really, really good scene. And I don't know why, I just really like meeting the people and the poets. So, but to get around to what I'd be looking for, it's really very specific. But one thing, so a couple of things I can definitely say. I don't know if this will be useful to anyone, but it's very pertinent to me. The first thing is just like commitment. Now, I know a lot of people write for different reasons, especially poetry. I think everyone in the world's probably written a poem at some point, and then maybe you write a bit more. And however, if I'm going to publish someone, I do poetry books, you see. So I was at the pamphlet fair at the Poetry Library on Saturday. I try and never miss that, and it was amazing. And I just go around and buy these wee bookies, like photocopied, mostly, or some nicely craft-made ones. And the books that I've published have all been larger collections, so they'd always be at least like 120 pages to have a spine. So I wouldn't be doing like a small collection. So that's the first thing, personally, I'd be looking for. You'd have to have enough poems to make a book,
A bigger book.
Yeah. And so a couple of the people that I published, so I published Jim Ferguson and Marcus McInturner. Now, the reasons I published both those men were actually, when I started to see them and get to know them and see them perform, I realized that they'd given up all hope or even pretense of doing anything else other than poetry. That is so bold. I mean, you must admit, to even say, right, I'm going to give up my job and be a writer is, madness enough. But to say, I'm just going to do poetry and that's how I'm going to make my living. That was a big, I'd seen Jim perform tons of times over the years. I think I first went up to him and said hello in 2007. I was at a pamphlet fair in Aberdeen in 1984 when I was still at school, and I bought a pamphlet there that turned out to be by Jim Ferguson, called Strong Drink. I showed it to him. So, I've not seen one of those for ages, man. And it's that kind of commitment of just like, so, and it's the same with Marcus. I just found it quite impressive, even before we'd like engaged with the poetry, that this is someone who's just saying, I'm just going to do this for a living. So there is that. Carla, who I also published, she's coming on next, I think. There she is. Was slightly different because when I started the company, I just started scouting for people, and it was because lockdown. There was no poetry events. So I just started looking through people's blogs, and actually my best-selling writer as a publisher is Colin Burnett, and his book was a blog. And I approached him and said, look, if there's anyone ever spoken to you about getting this as a book, and he'd spoken to a few people, but because of actually largely, I think, snobbery, class stuff, because of his dyslexia, dyspraxia, and Asperger's, and the fact that he's not got a university sort of education like so many of us, especially in publishing, people were just rejecting it because he couldn't spell. And it's like, oh no, man, no.
Good.
So the book had been into a lot of people, but so I just said, right, unpublish your job blog, we'll do it as a book. And it was kind of the same with Carla, actually. But what drew me particularly to to the attention of Carla was that she was already really supporting the community. And that just really wowed me, because even before I knew her, I was aware that she'd been doing Express Yourself on the radio. She'd been doing stuff at the Scots Language Centre. So here was someone that was already like really committed to the community and supporting it already. And so it was a really good opportunity for me to say, right, okay, we're going to give back. You're going to have you've published a book. No, all right, good, we'll do it. And again, it's just personal taste. I really I like direct poetry.
Do you think, from what you're saying, I'm gathering that you maybe think as well that there's a kind of, there's lots about it going around just now, that there's a slight element of snobbery can sometimes come into poetry and publishing poetry. Very slight. I just wondered,
that we
just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows there's a massive problem, particularly getting into the culture industry for a lot of working class people in particular, but not just them, neurodivergent people, and it's simply because, so I'm kind of like the other people that I meet who work in publishing. I mean, it was just, if I go to the Edinburgh Book Festival, they all come out, I say we all come out of university sort of talking the talk, and they just go into these jobs and they don't realize that actually that, it's not our fault for, but they just actually don't realize that they're already sort of encultured by tertiary education into almost, I don't know, just encultured into being a certain way about books and what culture is, and so it's nice to try and break that. And I had immense fun with Colin in particular, because the whole thing with him was access to the industry. There's just zero. He's living in Bonnyrigg. There's no writers groups. He doesn't know any writers. He doesn't know publishing. He doesn't know anything about it at all. And he tried to into Creative Scotland, heard nothing. He'd applied to the Book Trust several times for grants there, nothing. The Book Trust told me actually that's quite common, that, and probably people here will know if they applied for grants there, you can apply a lot of times for it. But I'm sure there's snobbery specific to poetry, but I don't find when I get in there,
there's privilege and there's, there's entitlement. You can see people who, they don't recognize that entitlement that just having an education in literature can bring. And I'm definitely with you. It's really as much as possible about being inclusive, I think there's so many places where I always describe it in my classes as the hand is up. There's a hand up that stops you walking forward. My job is to take the hand down. Take the hand down as a creative writing tutor and as someone who wants to publish people, because there are people who make it anyway just by privilege and having money and all of it, So good. So do you write poetry ever, or do you secretly write?
I have
poetry?
actually, but me being me, I've actually wrote long form. So I've written a poem. I wrote a poem in about 2015. It's about 800 to 900 lines, and it was in Doric. You can tell by my thick Aberdonian accent. I'm actually from Aberdeenshire, and all my forebears and relatives that spoke Doric, so I can still hear it the whole time. And so it was quite easy for me to adopt that, and I just got into so. And I was saying to Andy earlier, I wrote a very long poem about the death in custody of a musician who was really influential on me as a teenager, called Smiley Culture, which actually sort of it happened at the same time that Shenko Boya was killed in Kirkcaldy. So there was a weird crossover there, and that came out of the only time I've ever been thrown off Facebook, which was objecting to the Met Police about something connected with that Smiley Culture case. But
where can you locate that poem? I would love to see it.
I will do. I'll dig it out. Yeah, I'll send that to. They're looking for a publisher, but I tried all the sort of pamphlet presses. I just don't think the long poem was very good, really. I've had a poem in Gutter. at one time. I wrote a poem about the 2014 referendum.
It's just time as well, isn't it? As you say, if you're writing, it takes a lot of time, whereas if you're publishing, you get results quite quick and you can kind of shut your computer and walk away. That's that now, that's done, you know, and then move on to the next one. I suppose it gives a, but I think there's still something in you. You'll have to get another poem in gutter quite soon.
I will do. I'm just really into this. I just love writers, working writers, meeting new writers. I still, you know, go to events, and the people that I would like to publish, I guess if I see someone particularly like really good dramatic readers, and I've seen a few that I think, oh, that would be a great person, you know, to work with. And I don't find, it's weird when you get into the events yourself and become friends with everyone, the snobbery's not there, but then you just still wonder who's not there because they feel it's not for them somehow. So it's good of you to, you know, highlight that. And I think we just have to work at this kind of all the time to just say, you are included, you know, you can come whoever you are. Because it might, I mean, it's just a really obvious, stupid thing for me to say as a sort of like, you know, middle-aged guy, but it's just like so many, the more, you know, I meet people who genuinely like terrified to go in and read their poems because they just think it's not for them. And they're generally
people won't like it.
nails, unfortunately.
Yeah. Good. Well, we could talk all day, but we need to move on. Thank you so much for coming. So
my pleasure. It's good. It's lovely.
Peter
to hear.
Burnett of Leamington
Really
Books,
enjoyed-
folks,
really enjoyed
send
those.
your work. Tell them you've got no money, you've never been educated, you're from the sticks. Tell him any shit and make sure that that man publishes, because he's all-encompassing, nurturing, and inclusive. No, honestly, without making any joke, I think it's 100% where we should be. Where we should be. Thanks very much, Peter.
My pleasure.
So that was lovely, and that man is speaking from where, if you read the work he has published, especially poets, you'll realise he definitely puts his time where his mouth is on that issue. So thanks very much for doing that. Coming from a very lower working class background, I'm sending you all my shit as soon as I got off of here to say that I'm not educated at all. Anyway, so I'm going to pass over to my lovely fellow Wanderlust women colleague today. Please welcome Donna Campbell. Hi, Donna. So you're going to go on and introduce our other guests. That was lovely. I loved it, quite a variety, but it was nice hearing Peter, and it was nice doing that wee chat in the middle. I thought quite like that. I really enjoyed that. Maybe think about that
listening
again.
to that, and like, you're an independent publisher, Peter's, and without you guys, like without you people, the whole writing scene would be very like vanilla. It would be, for me, it wouldn't be worth buying anything, because it would just all be the same. And I want to hear loads of different voices and where they've came from and what it is that's important to them. So yeah, and the poetry was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and again, 2 different voices. So great first half. Yeah. So
Thanks
now
very much.
I have the pleasure of introducing a woman, why am I calling you a lady? A woman who I'd only heard about through your Express Yourself podcast. And actually, as soon as I heard about you, I had said, like, saying you, oh, can I please be on? Can I please be on? And yeah, it was like there was loads of poets there and a great platform for people. And then I actually saw you performing at the Scotia, at the Literary Lounge, and you were absolutely fantastic, and you totally blew me away. So I'm going to read Carla's biography. So Carla is a poet from Clydebank. I'm from Clydebank as well. Hello, Carla. But originally came from THEN in the Highlands of Scotland. Carla has recently had her collection of poetry published in a book named Carla, and enjoys sharing her poems at many poetry events around Scotland and further afield if the opportunity arises. She has her own monthly poetry radio show called Express Yourself, and that's on the first Tuesday of every month, and it's on sunny Govan Radio at 7 p.m. Carla is a trustee for Tell It Slant Poetry. bookshop and the poetry editor for the Scots Language Centre, publishing poetry every month in Scots. Carla, take it away.
Wow, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm not good. Thanks everybody for inviting me along, and thanks for listening. So I'm just going to go straight in because I've got a few poems I want to read. So this one's the first poem in the book, and it's called Me. I'm a healing lass, born and bred just like the coo, a healing bairn of the tuna tane, a tatty lover and planter fae the fields. My ma and dad, they taught me well themselves for Glasgow dwellings. They didn't ken their daughter wouldn't blether with the same Glasgow tuning. I was born a healing lass, played the bagpipes in class, jumped the hay bales in dry grass, can talk a chupter if asked, albeit a bit more Glasgow as times passed. I moved to the city in my later teens. For city life I was keen. All the bright lights and all the dancing, fancied my chancing, so's I did. Took myself a gallivanting. But through all my years, only one passion sincere was my poetry, my music, which I've always held dear. And all the tongues in which we speak, Gaelic, Doric, Scots, slang for the streets, wherever you be, let your tongue gang free and land live Scots laid in poetry. Thanks very much. So that was my first poem. My second poem I want to read because, I don't know much about it actually. I was going to ask for a bit of research earlier on, but there was a massacre the other week there, wasn't there? And it was to do with gay people. So that my heart breaks. So this poem's called Yesterday They Killed 50. It's also about a massacre and it's also gay people. And it was in Orlando a couple of years ago, you might remember. Yesterday they killed 50. Innocent lives went to waste, dancing in the name of love and what was supposed to be a peaceful place. Today the world showed up in colour and the protest in the name of peace. They're killing people every month. There's bloodshed on the streets. Yesterday they killed 50. A mother shed tears for her son. The action of another human and the inhumanity from a gun. Thanks very much. So this one is the tale of a female, where all the females will identify with this and all the males will identify with this one as well. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Every man knows and has been warned. With rage and strength in her eyes, hell be mend you if you make her cry. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. It be told in many a tale. The lady is not for turning and will send a philanderer packing and quickly running. So it be right to approach with caution when you see her temper quickly blossom, because when the eyes turn red, it's time to go, as every man should duly know. Thank you. I'm trying to just fire through them. So I was in hospital a couple of years ago. I spent 3 weeks in hospital. It was murder. Anyway, so this poem's called Everyone's Equal in Hospital. Corridors of trolley wheels full of steel contraptions. Medical equipment has never looked so untantalizing, all shiny and sterile and threatening. Wet wipes with no thrill labels, plastic caps, plastic taps, clear plastic water dispensers with plastic cups on sterile plastic tables. Easy wiped, mopped, disinfected and floors reflected, the blue gowns and trolley wheels and the pissed off faces from the people's fields. The days turn to nights, the nights turn to days, to raise, all sectioned up with medication breaks and 3 meals a day, institutionalized, and you're surrounded with sick, tired people and sad eyes. Everyone's equal in hospital. Thank you. And I've got one more. So this one is, she swallowed a spider. I once knew a woman who swallowed a spider, so I could re-release the poem of how it tickled inside her. She allowed me to document as she dropped it into her latch. But 3 days later, another 1,000 baby spiders did hatch. Like something from a horror, the spiders emerged. From every orifice she had, the spiders did surge. They took over her house and they terrorized her kids. I could only watch in horror because I was documenting this. The spiders were possessive and took to her like a mum as she continued to give birth to Spider 1001. her husband returns from an overseas trip to see his wife mothering spiders instead of his kids. A noble man, he tried to remain calm as he sat on his couch, but these possessive spiders, they wanted him out. They'd congregate like an army and bite him any chance they got. Getting anywhere near his wife was now a far distant thought. He needed a plan to get the spiders out of his life. He longed for the closeness of his kids and his wife. He had a solution and he had a goal. He was getting his wife back by pest control. Pest control arrive, another scary sight I might add, all those hoses and fumigation tubes and other equipment he had. The wife looked excited because she too wanted these spiders out and had faith in the pest control man because he was sexy and stout. So out comes his hoses as he fumigated her body, whilst the husband waited loyally outside in the lobby. Spiders all gone and one happy wife who swallowed the spider for the tickle inside her. Thank you. Thanks so much, guys. I really enjoyed that.
Carla, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. And it's very true that we're all just the same in the hospital. We're all patients, and that's it.
Absolutely.
What I really enjoy about your poetry is how you enjoy it. You really enjoy reading it, and that's infectious as well. And lots of humour there, but there's anger there as well, and that passion and frustration a little bit. But watching you read and enjoy your work is brilliant. Carla, thank you so much for that. Thank you. And I hope to see you again performing again soon. So next we have a woman that I met, maybe about 10 years ago. And I was up in Inverness, Bonnetmore, doing a writing retreat, and Anne was one of the tutors at the time. And it was fantastic. She was a great tutor and she shared an awful lot of her knowledge. And I've kind of got to know her as well over the years, and I've read quite a lot of Anne's stuff. And she's, I always get the impression that Anne's like a quiet woman, but she's not. When you listen to and read her poetry, it's fantastic stuff. And I'm going to read you Anne's bio. So Anne Drysdale was born near Manchester, brought up in London, and has lived in various places, including a narrow boat in the Midlands and a small holding in the North York Moors. Since then, she has written memoirs, essays, and a gonzo guidebook to Newport. Feeling Unusual, her eighth book of poems, was released this year by Shoestring Press. And Penelope Shuttle says of Anne Drysdale's clear-eyed and amused take on life continue to manifest in sharp and tender poems that carry the weight of this troubled world with deceptive lightness. She is a bit of a national treasure. Anne, welcome, Anne Drysdale.
Hi. Hello, everybody. And thank you for adjusting the video. I've been trying to do it ever since with filters and everything. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start with a poem born of teaching experience. It's purely functional poetry. I was employed by local Blaenau Gwent Borough Council to host some workshops for children in a sort of biodiversity scheme and outdoor poetry workshops. And I think it was about the day before we were supposed to start, I got a message from them to say they couldn't proceed unless I sent them a risk assessment. I thought, oh my God. So what I'm about to read now was the risk assessment that I actually sent to them. I never heard a word back from it, but the workshops went ahead. Risk assessment. The whole enterprise is fraught with hazard when you come to think about it. No parent would ever let their child participate knowing the full extent of the danger. Huddled for an hour in a sweaty tent with only a poet to take care of them, they could be inappropriately touched, approached by some ungodly reprobate, offering to show them skylarks in return for a quick peep at their budding talent. They might catch fire, rub two ideas together, and poof, spontaneous creativity. Addiction is a possibility, and the susceptible may find themselves unable to resist the strong temptation to indulge repeatedly habit. For as the wise poet wrote on the packet, this stuff can seriously affect the heart. I feel a bit, this is by way of a confession, that I did have one of those sort of top flight educations, because it was back in the old days where if you did fairly well in your 11 plus, you got a chance to go to a really posh school and you got a scholarship. And being a scholarship kid in a posh school is not fun. But prior to that, I did read a lot of the classical poets, and in my work you will find the odd fleeting reference to, particularly in this case, Keats. One of his best known poems is a sonnet that I loved as a girl. When I have fears that I may cease to be, you know. I loved it when I was a girl, and I wondered about it when I grew to be a woman. And now, as a crone, I really do question it. When I have fears. When Keats had fears that he might cease to be before he'd written all his mind could hold, he recognised that his infirmity might rob him of the chance of growing old. The lucky youngster never lived to see coevals gradually lose their grip on memory, on personality, and the last precious dregs of scholarship. He never got to watch the tragedy of shared affairs no longer making sense between good friends, nor feel the absentee tottering into total nescience. So he could not have understood that what I'm most afraid of is that I might not.
Oh,
That is, as you get older, it is something that scares me. And this next poem was a way of sorting out with the other person, as it were, concerned in my mental future. And it takes the form of a memorandum. And the memorandum is to my brain. I think of you as a bare-naked tortoise, hermit inhabiting my hard-hat skull, a busy gizmo ticking off the tasks that pay the cost of your accommodation. Brain, you have been much on my mind lately. Please do not close the doors on what I know. I've always loved you. Let us stay together. What will it take to make you live forever? Coconut oil spread thickly on a biscuit. I gag. You shrug. Nothing to do with me. Okay, you clever dick. Reflex it is. Brace yourself now. Here comes the oily fish. An aging woman studying new tricks to hold the focus of a restless lover. What can I give you to go away? Ginkgo biloba. Daily crossword puzzles. Dear giddy guardian of my status quo, let's go together into the garden for sunlight and aerobic exercise. Take careful notes. I will ask questions later. Don't worry. So, yeah. During the lockdown, we were sort of turned back on the old store cupboard, and when Mark asked me what I had for lunch, I hardly dared tell him. It was probably something I dug out. But you know, there are some things that we keep in the store cupboard and they are comforts because they link to our past. And just to open a tin really brings me alive. This is a poem about spam. Beautiful spam, so nearly meat. You came about as a wartime treat, with a pinch of pork and a hint of ham and a whiff of austerity. Beautiful spam. Beautiful spam who then would wish for snook or any funny fish, or flesh of billy, bull or ram. Oh, meat of the multitude. Beautiful spam. Beautiful spam, your pale pink prism plonked on a plate with Platonism, stands for the grandeur of Uncle Sam. Gift of America, beautiful spam. Beautiful spam, I thee exalt. Sodium nitrite, fat and salt, the fair foundation of all I am. Feast of obesity, beautiful spam. This next poem was written to try and explain to somebody what it feels like to have a low moment, you know, the times in your life when it isn't all ha ha he he. This is called How Sad Began. Not sad seasonal affective disorder, but the little sadness that begins the bigger sadness. And it works like this. How sad began. Sad came carefully, playing the old game, creeping closer, freezing when she turned to look, all the time sneaking about his weasel work. She knew there was something there, pushing her where it hurt, showing truths in distorting mirrors, finding too many ways to persuade her to believe. First he made time thin, so that it ran too fast. She looked for it day after day and found it had gone, leaving important things broken along its banks. He breathed frost over the whole house and the garden until the safe places were hard to reach and their colours were watered down until they went away. He changed the faces of people. They grew ugly. Their slack jaws dropped, their mean mouths pursed tightly round a devalued coinage of easy dribble. She cowered, calling out to her comforters, ran to where she'd left them, found only a jumble of dolls with no eyes. Sad threw mud at the window until outside disappeared. She saw only herself and the shadow on her shoulder. And then the lights went out. She knew him then, called out to him in the dark. Is that you, Sad? Is that you? She heard Sad laughing. Ha! Got you again. I read that last poem as part of a show, if you call it a show, that was put on for our local mental health charity. And it was good to read to people who knew what I was talking about and what I meant by this one, proving that even OCD has its funny side when you tell it like it is. Absent friend. When your head is feeling hairy and your elbows will not bend and there's funny-looking scum upon your tea, when your ears are full of whispers from a half-remembered friend, you will know you're getting messages from me. I am odd in name and number. I am 7. I am 3. I am telling you exactly what to do. I will spare you. I will dare you. Spit in public. Kiss a tree. So the peace of purpose will descend on you. I will tell you I will kill you if I smell you might resist. You are technically dead until it's done. When the gob is in the gutter and the sycamore is kissed, you will recognize you and I are one. Now I'll finish with a poem of celebrations for all my sisters in spirit. I do get very worried. I mean, Look behind me. I'm not the tidiest of women, but I love my madhouse, and I love the sort of crazy salmagundi that I live in. It's my mess, and I love it. And I'm sure there are a lot of other women who feel exactly the same. And this is for them. It's called Slutfest. Today is the day we rejoice, we sluts and hussies, out in broad daylight in public. Come and see us dance. It is the day of Mary, who said sucks to her sister and sat on her arse while the beardy man told stories. It is the day of Lilith, who's no home to go to. When evicted from Eden, she hollered, yay, in unholy triumph. She never liked gardening anyway. She gets along. God damn how she rates snakes. It is the day of Shamhat of the April Gate, who teaches boys to eat and drink and fornicate. Nobody looks in her refrigerator for mould, or turns up their nose at the whiff of the fuzzy armpits that put her magnificent tits in parenthesis. It is the day of me, and all my unsavoury sisters. We have flung open the curtains on our accumulations, left open the doors to our decomposition. We are out, all out in the street and dancing, scaring the shit out of the hard-faced men and the horses, wising up their wives to the truth of us. We have lives, we live them in studios, we fill them with what delights us. Peer in and marvel. We do not give house room to cleanliness or regret. Today we will dance. Look, world, our legs are unshaven and our shoes are mismatched. Hurrah! There you go.
Brilliant.
Oh, Anne, my heart's singing just after, you know, listening to your work. And spam, I remember, like, I think everybody knows about spam. My mum used to make us spam fritters, and then because we liked them, she made them every night, and we were just really sick of them. But also as well, you were saying about a risk assessment for taking workshops like in the park with children with poetry and that. It's like, it's crazy, isn't it? And then that memorandum to the brain, just absolutely fantastic. And I could listen to your voice all night. I could imagine like just you being on TV and me finishing my night with you, like, just listening to you. And thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was excellent.
It was absolutely incredible. It was. I just loved the women as well. I loved the fuzzy armpits and the women running about, getting outside. We're going out. We're going to be a riot and stuff. But I don't know. I think I'm one of these people that are very tidy house, but there's always one room. It's a tip, and I love that room. You know, I'll open the door and just throw things in it. So I try and inhabit both worlds, and you know, that the messy person and then pretend everything's okay. I loved those poems as well. I mean, I remember my mum thinking we were going big up market because she bought a tin, those wee funny tins where the thing is round, and it wasn't spam, it was chopped ham and pork. And that was like the equivalent of steak in our house when we were growing up. You know what I mean? That was us really moved up the ladder. We were only having spam, we were having chopped ham and pork, and it was a wee bit more expensive. Wee beans, that was it. Sometimes a wee egg. Thank you very much. That was wonderful, wasn't it, Donna? I loved it. And I loved Carla's performance. Just the wee spiders, and she was so naughty when the wee stout guy came to clean out the spiders, and she grabbed him. Poor husband, he's probably tidying the house somewhere. That was a great performance of it as well. I can't wait to hear your book. I'll be getting in touch with Peter to get hold of that. So thanks everyone. I mean, that was really, I loved the kind of, I really liked having the middle bit with the chat, and thanks Peter for doing that and just having a wee, just bringing the picture. Also thanks for putting up the hearts. I just saw Peter putting up wee hearts every time something gave him a wee stab, which was really, really sweet. Really, really great. Thank you. There is wee hearts again. Thanks Tony. Thanks Andy. Thanks Carla. Thanks Peter. And a huge thanks, Anne Drysdale, I don't have any of your books, to my great shame. I will have within the next week. That's for sure. What do you think, Donna?
Definitely, it has been special tonight, and again, it's all the different poetry, all the different voices, even just the different accents is just fantastic to hear. It's been a great night, and what more could you ask for? It's Wednesday night, isn't it? It's Wednesday night, and here we're sitting in the comfort of our own home. I've got the wee candles going there, and listening to poetry and connecting with people like from all over the UK. It's absolutely fantastic. And I hope you've enjoyed yourself tonight, and that you will join us again. It'll probably be January, won't it?
Late January, I think. Late January. Now, we were going to do one at the end of December, but everybody will be busy jingle belling or trying to avoid jingle belling. So we'll probably leave the December one. But this will be up on the SCAP YouTube in the next couple of days, so that you can get people to watch it and have a wee look at yourselves again. Thank you, Donna, for being who you are. And thanks to Mark for managing everyone in. I hope when we come to SCAP live in the room, we'll get you up. That'll be probably next March. And what I'm hoping to do then is have a big kind of party session with SCAP, and Donna and I will host it, and just have the people that have been on the films up for a live evening. So thank you very much for coming, and I'm going to go in and have a wee gin and tonic, and wish I'd got one earlier. I didn't want to run away and get it now. Thanks very much, everybody, and thanks to Donna. We'll see you soon.
Thanks,
Bring in the
guys.
audience, Mark, and let them wave and thank everybody for what they've done tonight.
Hey, there you are. There's everybody. Hey.
I realise people don't show themselves at this time because they're sitting in their jammies.
Great to see everybody, and thank you everybody for coming. It's been a great night,